People disappear every day in strange and mysterious ways. Some vanish from right under the noses of their family, while others might accidentally wander off or become victims of foul play. Some are lucky enough to be found, while many others are never seen or heard from again. So today, here at Unexplained Mysteries, we will be looking at instances where people disappeared. Joshua Maddox. Joshua Maddox was a normal 18-year-old who lived in the Pike National Forest in Teller County, Colorado in 2008. He loved nature and hiking, so when he left to go on a walk one day, nobody thought anything of it until he failed to return that night. His disappearance sparked searches all over the area for months, hoping to uncover Josh safe and sound, or at least get some answers as to what might have happened to him. However, he was never found and continued to be listed as a missing person for years. In a seemingly unrelated course of events, in 2015, a builder who owned an old, decaying cabin in the woods that had been abandoned for over 10 years decided to demolish it in order to begin developing the land that it stood on. Before demolition, the builder came out to check that everything was in order and entered the cabin for the first time in many years. He noticed a smell of rot and decay in the cabin, but attributed it to the many animals who made the decrepit building their home in the intervening years. However, when demolition began, starting with taking apart the chimney to reuse the bricks, workers were horrified to discover that there was a body of a young man inside the chimney, which was likely the source of the smell. The police and coroner were called to investigate and remove the body, and his dental records positively identified it as the body of Joshua Maddox. Maddox was found in a fetal position, with his legs curled up under his chest and his feet above his head, leading investigators to hypothesize that he might have gotten stuck in an attempt to enter the abandoned building and explore. Although the coroner agreed with this guess, as the autopsy did not reveal any trauma or suspicious substances and ruled the end of his life as accidental, there are those who disagree. For example, a heavy metal grate covering the chimney had disappeared and a heavy breakfast bar had been forcibly removed from the wall and dragged in front of the chimney to cover it. Additionally, many thought it was odd that Joshua would have voluntarily entered the chimney head first, and his clothing was found folded inside of the cabin next to the fireplace. He had only been wearing a thin thermal shirt when he entered the chimney. Despite several tip-offs and leads claiming that Joshua was finished off, the police were never able to determine what had actually happened, and the case remains a mystery to this day. Jason Jolkovskys' disappearance. June is the favourite season of many people. The midsummer is the perfect time to unwind. Jason Jolkovskys was doing just that when he picked up the phone. Jason, 19 at the time, was called by his boss from the restaurant he worked at, asking if he could come in early. Jason was described as a hard-working man, but a hailstorm damaged his car and prohibited him from getting to work as he worked 4 miles away from his home. His boss organised for a co-worker to pick him up at the local school, but he never made it to meet with the co-worker. After 15 minutes of waiting for him to arrive, Jason's co-worker called their boss to inform him he was not there. She returned to work another 15 minutes later. Jason never came to work. Jason's family came home and found him still missing. The family searched for their son. Jason was a religious teenager and not the running away from home type, an honor student at his old school. He did, however, have a mild disability when it came to slurring and speech. He was in financial trouble and required jobs to keep afloat. Jim and Kelly, Jason's parents, were convinced that something disastrous must have happened. He never skipped work and was not with any of his friends either. The following morning, his family reported him as missing, but the police refused to help, telling the parents that the teen likely just went out with friends for the weekend and would surely return. The family and friends of Jason went looking for him, putting up posters and even having news of his disappearance run in the local radio station. By this point, the group of Jason's loved ones were certain he was hurt, if not fearing the worst. No news of his whereabouts ever turned up, but it forced the police into action, and although it was belated, they gave the investigation their all. But by then,
it was too late to find worthwhile evidence. There was no evidence at all. He simply vanished. No clues to follow. 2 weeks from his initial disappearance, the police got word of a boy with his description seen at the Mahoney State Park, but found nothing to prove he had been there. The family did everything in their power to find their son, with Kelly even beginning the organisation Protect Jason to raise awareness. Now, 20 years later, his case continues to baffle investigators. Jason lacked funds to leave and begin a new life, nor was he the kind of man to do so. He also planned on working that day, and his car was being repaired. Since he went missing, his bank account and social security number have remained untouched. His family refused to believe the theory that he took his life due to his religious faith, and he was an upbeat individual who presented no sign of sorrow. They believe, to this day, that he was taken and someone had ended his life. Little is known about what became of him, with no body ever found. Disappearances are one of the hardest things families have to go through. Hope can be both a blessing and a curse. People disappear every single day, with cases sometimes forever remaining unsolved. Others can be solved decades afterwards, but the only certainty is uncertainty. The chilling disappearance of Sammy Bulker. Vacations are supposed to be abundant with family fun and timeless memories, but for a certain family, a would-be exciting trip turned into a living nightmare. Sammy Bulker was an 8-year-old boy and the son of Kenneth Bulker. When talking about his son, Kenneth described him as a passionate but stubborn young boy who was on the high-functioning side of the autistic spectrum, which resulted in Sammy being easily overwhelmed by brightness and sound. The boy stood at 4 feet and 11 inches in height and weighed an estimated 85 pounds. He had dark eyes and brown hair cut in a short hairstyle. The family was staying in a cabin near Diamond Lake when the tragedy occurred. He disappeared in October. The Bulker family had prior camping experience, and Sammy grew up learning important survival tricks, but no amount of teaching could ensure a vulnerable child's survival in the vast wilderness of Oregon. Kenneth and Sammy went out to play a game of either tag or hide and seek at around 4 in the afternoon. The reason for this roadside game is unknown, and Kenneth's motives have since been suspected as impure. The father and child played until Sammy spotted a radiant shade of yellow peeking out from the ground, believing it to be gold. Due to the autumn period, it was already getting dark, and Kenneth wanted to go to their cabin, heading off to the cinder slope where they had been playing moments prior. As Kenneth Bulker went to his car, he assumed his son would follow, but he did not. Instead, Sammy vehemently refused to leave or even step off the cinder slope and began running away from his father when he tried to chase after him. It is assumed that Sammy believed Kenneth was just playing with him. After the fact, Kenneth stated, "I never caught up with him, and at that point, he disappeared over the top somewhere, and I lost him." After Sammy's disappearance was reported, over 200 people helped with the area's search for the boy, travelling and combing a total area of 4,000 acres. An entire week passed by with trained dogs and even the use of helicopters, but it was to no avail. Never again would Sammy be seen by anyone. Kenneth's story has been criticised by police and speculators alike. It seems suspicious that a young autistic boy seemed to suddenly run from his father and disappear in plain sight by running straight into the wilderness without any other witnesses. However, no proof of foul play was ever discovered.
Brandon Lawson. In 2013, father of 4 Brandon Lawson went missing. His case captured the attention of the public and online speculation grew. For years, Brandon had been a dedicated family man with his 4 children and fiancée Ladessa. The 26-year-old was an oil field worker, often working up to 95 hours a week. Despite the family-orientated attitude, he did have a criminal past. Brandon had a run-in with the law and a bench warrant due to his substance use. He spent time behind bars but had been using again in the run-up to his disappearance. Home from a long shift on August 9, 2013, Brandon and his fiancée had a row. Ladessa was angry at him not returning home and with his substance abuse, whilst Brandon is described as having been in panic mode. He quickly left, claiming he was driving to his father's 3.5 hours away. Ledessa, concerned about his state of mind and unsure if he was high at the time, called and asked him to instead walk to his brother's, believing him to be unfit behind the wheel. We do not know if Brandon intended to follow his fiancée's advice or not. He did switch his route from Highway 277 to Highway 67, though he could have decided back roads would keep him out of the way of the police. Running low on gas, we know Brandon stopped to top up on his way. Ledessa remained concerned and called Brandon's brother, Kyle, seeking his help. Kyle and his girlfriend arrived at Brandon and Ledessa's home at approximately 12:10 a.m. Not long after Brandon had been on the road, he too tried to reach Kyle, telling him he needed gas brought to him, as he had gotten stuck on Highway 277. With broken service and speech slurred presumably due to substance abuse, it was tricky to make out Brandon's message, though Kyle thinks Brandon told him he was 10 minutes up the road to hurry up and said that he was being chased out of town. Kyle's first impressions were that stimulants had resulted in paranoid hallucinations, though Brandon insisted he was not. Ledessa left a gas can by the front of the house for Kyle to take, then went to bed with her phone left charging elsewhere. She awoke to multiple unanswered calls from both men. When Kyle and his girlfriend found Brandon's truck, he was nowhere to be seen, and a police car was seen accompanying it. The police car followed a call made from an onlooker concerned about the truck being a hazard to other vehicles, though this is not the only 911 call that had been made that evening. Brandon himself called 911, requesting police in a manic and slurred call. He claimed people were chasing him into the woods, that he was bleeding, and some even believe there is another voice and firearm shots in the background. Recordings of the 911 call went viral, and online strangers took to trying to decipher the message. No dispatcher was sent. Many believe his life was taken from him, with his claims to both Kyle and the police of him being chased, the reports of blood and his requests for the police, and the alleged second voice on the 911 call. However, investigators found no blood at the site. Some think he ran away, possibly avoiding the police for his substance abuse, trying to keep out of prison. However, he had already served time and was not afraid to be back behind bars. Some dismissed this theory as he would have been looking at a short sentence and was already working with an attorney facing the felony charge. None of his friends nor family believe he could leave his children. Finally, why would a man running from the police call 911? Perhaps the most common speculation is that Brandon was high, hallucinating and paranoid, and that he hid to escape his hallucination and passed away in hiding. This seems to be the assumption Kyle holds. We may never know what happened to Brandon Lawson on that August night in 2013. Whilst it is truly devastating when it happens, there are millions of missing persons cases worldwide. Hopefully we find a concrete answer, and hopefully it is positive news.
But what do you make of these unsettling disappearances? Be sure to let us know your thoughts in the comments section below and help us by growing this community while working to solve these unexplained mysteries. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more videos.